Good afternoon, everyone. We do have a quorum, and I'd like to call this meeting to order, but first let me ask Ms. Mano to take roll to ascertain that a quorum exists. Well, I'm sure you... Thank you.
Chairman Senator Rory Respicio.
Present.
Vice Chair Jane Flores.
Present.
Senator Anthony Atta.
Here.
Sofia Santos Diaz. Absent. Barry Mead. Absent. Robert Klitsky.
Here.
Senator Tom Atta.
Present.
Assistant Attorney General Pat Mason. Absent. Rendrati Limtialco. Absent. Maureen Maritita.
Present.
Jeff Marshall Salt.
Jackie Guinea.
Troy Torres. Absent. Frank Gumatautal. Absent. Mr. Chair, there is a quorum.
Okay, 7. We do have just an email note from Rendrati Limtiaco. She said she'll be running a little late because of a prior commitment, but she certainly will be here. Attorney Sofia Diaz says that she's not able to make it, but that she'll present her report as soon as possible, preferably by the next meeting. And we have a note from Mr. Mead saying that he'll try to be here. He thought that it was 11:30, but that because of his own scheduling, he'll try to be here by 2 o'clock. So we do have a quorum, and that we should proceed. Next item on the agenda is I'll call for the approval of the meeting minutes from April 30th, 2014, and the minutes have been prepared. And if you want to take some time to review it, otherwise I'll entertain a motion that we approve the minutes subject to corrections.
I think there was a motion passed. It's not reflected in the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Senator Klitsky.
There was a motion. Excuse me. There was a motion to refer the McNinch matter and the Sabetti matter to the subcommittee. What's the name of the subcommittee? Subcommittee on Rules and Complaints. And that the subcommittee on Rules and Complaints was develop procedures for complaints. I don't see that motion in these minutes.
Okay.
Motion carried.
Yeah, okay, no, you're correct. And so we would make these corrections as well, but you're correct. It needs to be added to the minutes.
And there was also, Mr. Chairman, there was a fair amount of discussion as to what this council would do, what its powers and authority were, et cetera. I don't see any of that in the minutes.
Well, I don't think the council adopted by motion what those powers and duties and responsibilities are. Yeah, but the discussion was there, and that they were supposed to meet, which they met twice, and come back and make that report to the council. And so there's a point in the agenda where we would hear from Subcommittee Chairman Marchessault to provide us an update. But
well, as far as one member is concerned, I would like to see a little bit more substance in the minutes.
In the minutes, okay, duly noted.
I think that we could probably just have a synopsis of the discussion. It doesn't need to be verbatim what was discussed.
Yeah.
Do we need to have Frank Gumatautal's name on the members?
Yes.
Present. Okay.
Yeah, and add Frank Gumatautal.
Okay. Anything else? So is a motion then in order that we approve this subject to those corrections, and then at our next meeting we can review these minutes and make sure.
Not as far as I'm concerned, that the wording of that motion is critical to our operations. Without speaking on it to any great extent, some of the discussion that we had during the first meeting was that the way we handled the 2 complaints that were before the council at that time were crucial and would determine how the rest of the council's business would be carried out. So I think we need to see those minutes, I think we need to see that minute, or that motion very accurately recorded before we move forward on approval of these minutes.
Okay, but again, the recording of that, what transpired at the meeting, was just a discussion, and that the subcommittee would go and report what happened in the last 2 meetings, and that it's up to us today.
Well, we can just get the recording. We don't have to do it right now. We can just put subject, the recording will be
Or I guess what I'm
recorded
hearing,
verbatim.
what I'm hearing Senator Klitsky say is more appropriate than to entertain a motion that we table the adoption of these minutes pending another presentation of the minutes.
Exactly.
So is there a second?
Okay. Second.
Okay. On the motion that we table the approval of the minutes, specifically item 2 from April 30, 2014, pending those requirements as pointed out, there has been a second. Any objections? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion unanimously passes. Thank you. Okay. On item 3, the subcommittee reports. We've identified, based on the adoption of the resolution, that there are to be 4 subcommittees: the Freedom of Information and Open Government Complaints, chaired by Subcommittee Chair Jeff Marchessault; the Training Seminars and Educational Programs, that would be chaired by, the subcommittee would be chaired by Deputy Attorney General Pat Mason; publication of printed materials, Rindradi Limtiaco; and website compliance, Attorney Sofia Diaz from the Judiciary. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Marchessault for an update of the Freedom of Information and Open Government Complaints.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand that what I'm about ready to talk about is going to open a can of emotional worms. It was evident from the beginning of this meeting, even before we started. But I just remind everybody that I think that the spirit of this meeting is something that we all come gathered to pursue, which is open government. And I just want everybody to be mindful of the fact that we should try to maintain decorum. The subcommittee met on May 6th at the Speaker Wanpat's office, also May 13th at Senator Respiccio's office. It has drafted a complaints processing procedure. We drew on several similar processes in other jurisdictions. Drawing on several published examples from other jurisdictions, we also have drafted a complaints form. Both of those have been emailed to everybody on the advisory council. Okay, so that's up for review, consideration, and comment. Also drafted is an advisory opinion on Pacific News Center reporter Clint Ridgell's complaint. It has also been submitted to full advisory council review today. And I just became aware that a draft advisory opinion has also been written for Dr. Ron McNish's complaint. And we'll get to that in a moment. I just wanted to also talk about some important issues and takeaways from the complaint subcommittee meetings. I've always tried to point out that we should have a sensitivity to personal privacy and privacy laws in all actions taken by the advisory council, and that we should be taking care to protect the council legally while satisfying inherent demands for openness. Also, something that former Senator Klitsky brought up during our last meeting on the 13th was a question about whether this committee should be, or this advisory council should be considered adversarial or inquisitorial, or either adversarial or inquisitorial, or neither, because this is a non-judicial body. We can't mete out justice. We only issue advisory opinions and encourage compliance. I think that follows the line that this council is not a legislative court, and that we're not set up that way, that it would be beyond our powers. What Mr. Klitsky might call ultra vires, I think is what it's called in Latin. He's often fond of using legal terms, ultra vires. But getting back to the processing, I think we'd be a little hasty to adopt any advisory opinions at the moment. I understand that there are two opinions on this committee, and we seem pretty divided on it. There is a lot of excitement and energy to move forward, and I'm behind that, but I think we should proceed with caution. I hear what Senator Klitsky is saying when he says that we've got to get our stuff together before we can proceed. And insofar as we've told Rua Sabeti, the second complainant, that he will have to go back to the drawing board and resubmit the complaint that he's presented to us because it doesn't have a lot of order to it, it's incumbent upon us to put that order together and to agree on it as an advisory committee or an advisory council. And if we're going to hold that standard to one complainant, we should hold that standard to all complainants. Now, I have reviewed one of the advisory opinions, and I thought it was very well reasoned. I thought it was based on the law, and I think that's all we can do is just advise the Rules Committee and then therefore the legislature by picking apart the law, and if we agree on that interpretation as a council, then we can turn that into the complainant. We can submit it to the complainant. But at the same time, I think that we need to have our process in order before we adopt any advisory opinions.
I agree. I think that today, if we can, I think we should adopt the complaint procedures, the complaint filing procedures.
Okay.
And maybe give some more edits to the form and the FOIA FOI, and then if we do that, then at the next meeting, or maybe if we do that, then we can address the after everybody else's committee reports, then possibly under other business, we could address these complaints if we want, or these drafts.
If I may ask, did everybody receive copies of the draft procedures that were put together by Member Mead, and also the draft FOIA complaint form put together by a sub of the subcommittee, Jane Flores and
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Minow?
I'd like to be recognized if I could, very.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I'm seeing all of this stuff for the first time today, and I have many concerns as to how things have proceeded since the last time this council met. I was here for the whole council meeting. I was present for both of the advisory council meetings, including the one that you didn't attend. When we adopted the motion to refer these matters to the advisory committee, I pointed out that the open government law would apply to that advisory committee. A somewhat unpopular opinion at the time, but one that I would still stand behind. If we're going to be in the Freedom of Information Act business, then we have to comply with statute ourselves. But we proceeded. It was Barry Mead's suggestion that we proceed on the basis that the meetings of the subcommittee would be working sessions, and that we wouldn't adopt anything in the working session, that we would forward, I think, which he referred to as a compilation of our work to the council, and the council could then, since we hadn't had a valid open government meeting, the council itself then would dig through those things. Well, we don't have a compilation of the work of the subcommittee. We haven't complied with the open government law.
Hold on.
I think what we have here, Mr.
What would you have us do, Bob?
Or before we get any further, it's comments like that, Senator Klitsky, that says we haven't complied with the open government law,
Yeah.
that people will pick up. So tell me specifically, in what areas of the open government did we violate? Tell me specifically.
When our subcommittee met, it was with the understanding that it would be a working session.
Correct.
Right?
Correct?
No, I'm looking at several draft papers. Where did these draft papers come from?
Nothing has been adopted, Bob. It's something that the council
Okay.
will review today, and this is a properly noticed.
I'll withdraw my
I
question.
And then be
recall,
careful with your comments too, Bob. Be careful.
I recall that Bernadette and I were supposed to edit these forms, and that's what happened.
Okay.
So here they
I
are.
will withdraw my question then
Thank you.
and make a statement that these came from somewhere other than the advisory committee, because I didn't even see them until today.
I'd just like to say I haven't seen them either. I'm fine with that.
If I could
I'm
continue.
fine with that.
Yeah, I hadn't seen these before today. We had talked a little bit about a complaint and some of the things that should go into the complaint. We had also discussed the fact that the rules should be adopted before the complaint. We talked about things like if we had a complaint against the government, a director, should the director be given notice that a complaint had been filed? Talked about a lot of different things in those two meetings. Now, the second meeting, let me back up for a second. After the second meeting, I looked at the website and I found out that we're actually inviting complaints on this council's website. If you have a complaint, email it to, and there's an address there. When the motion that should be in the minutes here made it pretty clear that we wouldn't be able to entertain complaints at this table. They would have to be entertained at the subcommittee, in a subcommittee meeting. Since the subcommittee hasn't complied with the open government law, then we're not in a position, you know, you could call this a draft, you could call it a lot of different things, but it isn't the way we ought to be proceeding, Mr. Chairman.
Bob, what would you have us do to actually move forward?
Could I answer that?
Sure.
Yeah, what I would have us do is I would have us draft the rules by which this council is going to operate, come up with some forms. We had some pretty good discussion about what ought to go into the forms. Finish that. Probably the best way to do it would be to have a properly noticed called meeting of the subcommittee, adopt the subcommittee's recommendations, send them back here for the council's adoption. Otherwise, we're way ahead of ourselves. We got the cart before the horse. We've got several different things going on at the same time that can lead to nothing but chaos.
I submit that we've been over backwards to keep this committee, this council, because it is a committee, and our subcommittee open according to the open government law, and I fail to understand how we have not been compliant. I don't understand.
If you have a subcommittee meeting, you're supposed to give the notice, the requisite notice, the 7 days notice, the 3 days notice, supposed to be published in the paper, the whole thing.
You're talking about this meeting? Or
No, I'm talking about the
Now, I have
subcommittee
a point about, if I can be recognized, about publishing in the paper. That's not exactly true. You submit it for publication. The paper does not have to publish anything. It can be on the website, it can be on their website, but it does not, they do not have to print it.
If it's a special meeting, you're right, if it's a special meeting. But you have to at least, if it's a special meeting, you have to at least submit it to the media.
You're talking about the subcommittee or the council?
We have submitted them to the media. It's
When?
just before the meeting was, we submitted them, the notice to the media. The notices have been submitted.
I remember receiving that.
Yeah,
With
I
the-
do too.
With the requisite amount of time.
I believe so.
Wow.
It's just that you can't rely on the media to, I mean, we publish board meetings or submit board meeting publications to the media all the time.
Well-
And sometimes they don't publish them in the paper, sometimes they do, but they usually put them on the website.
Again, for a special meeting, that's true. But I don't think it would be unusual for a member of the subcommittee to ask if it would be permissible for him to see these things when they happen. When we met, there was no discussion whatsoever about
We all get the notice.
the call. Well, as a member, I have to get the notice. That's
Yeah,
part
we
of it.
all do. But as a member, don't you get the emails that?
But I'm talking about the media notice of the paper sent to the media.
Okay, well, are they, then, okay, well, then, one of our procedures, okay, we're going to write down some procedures right now. One of the procedures will be that we have to all be CC'd when the media is, in the media notice. That way, then we will all know.
I think we were. That's how Maureen saw it. That's how I saw it.
Yeah.
I distinctly
Well, we-
recall during the last meeting that we said that we would be going into working session. And when I tried to formalize that meeting, Bob, you told me that this is not a formal meeting. This is a working session. There's no reason to call for an adjournment. There's no reason to follow Robert's Rules of Order.
Or even make a
Exactly.
motion.
So if that's the case, was that a working session or was that an official government meeting that requires notification?
These are the kinds of questions that have to be addressed.
Do we need to have a 2-week discussion on this? Can't we just to say, okay, if we're having a working session, we don't need to inform the media? End of story.
That was the understanding that I left here with, and it was my understanding right up until the time that I saw these things that came out of the committee that I'm a member of, that I never even saw before this afternoon.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to meet you halfway, and I said this at the very beginning of the advisory council meeting. I said that I'm seeing one of these advisory opinions for the very first time. I didn't even know it was written, okay? I commend anybody who has anything to do with this council who is trying to act quickly and in the spirit of what we are mandated to do, which is to act quickly. Now, I'm not saying not carefully, and that's where I agree with you 100%, that we should have all these rules in order. And if it's not too much to ask, I'd like to proceed with what's on the agenda, which is discussing rules and procedures. They were submitted to everybody via email today. And, well, actually, Barry's was submitted some time ago.
Right.
If nobody got that, please tell us now, but I seem to recall
I
it
did.
going to everyone.
Yeah.
There is a complaints procedures form, and there is a complaint form for the public. Now, does everybody have the complaint procedures form?
Complaint procedures form, yes. Yes.
This came
Yes.
from Barry Mead.
We
Right.
actually received that on Sunday. We received that on Sunday, or at least I
Mr.
did.
Chairman?
Several days ago.
Mr. Chairman, once again, I am given a flood of papers today, no transmittals, no signatures. I don't know where they came from. I don't know what they are. This is sort of like what happened after our last advisory council meeting. We had an advisory council meeting. Clint Rigel was there. He wanted to interview the chairman. He interviewed the chairman.
That was a subcommittee meeting. I
I'm sorry,
apologize.
you're right, subcommittee meeting. The Clint Rigel interviewed the chairman of the subcommittee. Less than an hour, I received by email a notice of this meeting, which I thought was kind of surprising because you were sick, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, but there was a request by council member that be on the agenda.
Which council members?
The vice chair, she had sent an email to everybody saying that this matter that involved the mayor's council should be on the agenda for the council meeting, and then luckily or unluckily, as whatever the case may be, Clint Rigel went on his own, filed a complaint. So there was a complaint before the council, and if I may be given permission to speak a little bit here, so that you don't say that I'm chairman and I can't really speak from the chair, and I recognize that.
You can, but provided nobody else wants to speak. And I really want to speak, but I'll
Thank
be
you,
more
Bob.
than happy to defer to you at this particular time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator
Proceed.
Cliffy. Thank you. So as Jeff pointed out, we're in an interesting juncture here where the announcement of the FOIA Council and the creation of the council provided that an opportunity for those who are seeking some kind of redress to some concerns they may have regarding the open government laws and the Sunshine Act. So once the council was created by legislative resolution, we've had immediately 2 complaints. We had 2 complaints going to the first meeting. And so at our inaugural meeting, it was decided that these matters will be forwarded to the two complaints will be forwarded to the subcommittee of complaints, that the subcommittee was supposed to get together, which you have, met 2 separate occasions, to go over some working procedures on how these complaints make it from the time it's received by the council to the time it gets referred to the subcommittee. At that meeting, it was also clear that no decision could be made because it wasn't a meeting that was noticed pursuant to the open government law. And so it brings up a very important discussion of where we're at today. Where we're at today is there's 2 complaints before the FOIA Council that is very clear based on the wording of the law and for the review of the council, whether or not these complaints translate to violations in the open government law. That's the second thing. And then the other thing that we have to do is go over these procedures and processes, and that will determine the extent to which this council shall be involved. From the 2 meetings that we had, as Jeff pointed out, there was some discussion on the extent this council will be involved in these complaints. And so we...
Can I continue now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Moments, or at least within an hour, and I noticed calling a meeting came out with nobody's name on it. I didn't see your name on it. I didn't see anybody's name on it. Calling this meeting. When Clint did the news that night, the last sentence of the news was that Pacific News Center had been informed that his complaint would be on the agenda today. Who informed Clint?
Well, I called the meeting. I'm chairman of the council.
I said we should address this.
Did you tell Clint that?
I told Senator Respicio, and Clint actually emailed me or called me and said, hey, are you going to be at the meeting? Can I get a soundbite from you? And I said, no, I am not going to be at the meeting. And I asked Jeff if he would do it.
Is this adversarial or inquisitorial? Because I feel like this is the Spanish Inquisition.
You know what I think we need to do? We need to go on with the subcommittee reports, and then obviously we can table the FOIA complaints and approve the templates, and then
go back
get on
to the
with
FOIA
it.
complaints.
Because we need to get moving. I feel like all we do is fight, and that is ridiculous. We need to move forward here instead of being, this is a quagmire, and frankly, it's taking a lot of time that a lot of us don't have.
If I may, I understand that at the administrative level of this council, there is real excitement about moving this forward. I am not in the least offended that advisory council opinions have been drafted.
Neither am I.
I think it is slightly out of order, but that does not mean that we have to adopt those right now until we adopt the procedures and adopt the form. I understand there is a barrage of papers and emails going through our mass email communication. I understand that people are having separate and private communications. I'm not offended. Nothing can go forward in this advisory council unless we all act together, and I'm with Jane on this. I think we all agree that the forms and procedure need to be in place, and I ask if we can move forward with this now without delay.
So I'll entertain, would you make
I have something.
I think there's a motion on the floor.
I didn't hear it.
Well, I'm going to...
You're going to ask somebody to make it?
No, I'm going to clarify that based on what Vice Chairman have said and based on what Jeff has said, that there's a request that we table this discussion and proceed to the adoption of the complaint procedures, the intake form. And if you make that in the form of a motion, I'd entertain it. Otherwise, I recognize Senator Kliske.
Okay. Would you like to say something before I make the motion?
I would. Thank you, Jane. Yeah. So the complaint, the notice came out like that. The news comes out and reports that night that that the Clinton Rigel complaint would be on the agenda today. Now, once again, I'm a member of this committee. I've been to every one of these council meetings. I've been to every subcommittee meeting, and I'm finding out about these things at the last minute and third hand. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the wrong way to go about it. If the rules were that everyone should flood this table with his own suggestions as to complaint procedures, rules, etc., then I would have done it myself. But silly me, I thought that these things were supposed to come from the committee, not just kind of arise.
Do you not get your emails, Bob?
I didn't get Jane's email.
I thought I replied
To
to
everybody,
all.
yeah.
I said reply all.
Yeah,
and I
everybody.
said, I think we should put
Well,
this on the agenda for
I
next
think
meeting.
then we could probably spend a lot of time arguing whether or not I got the email. I mean, that
No,
would
but
be...
that would be a significant discussion to have, because you've also suggested that you want someone to have you sign a written receipt of these notices.
No, what I'm saying is this, that if we wanted to comply with the open government law in the subcommittee, I think it would be time well spent. Second, things coming out of the subcommittee should come from the subcommittee, not willy-nilly from anybody in the subcommittee who thinks he ought to be sending papers around. Because the papers that we have on the table today, as far as I'm concerned, are deficient. They're not even half done. And I don't think this is the proper time and place to hash that kind of stuff out. We could be moving a lot faster, but we spend a lot of time because we want to skip over things. We want to reach a result without knowing how we're going to get to the result. We've had some discussion as to where these reports should go. I know of at least one member who has expressed himself by saying that the reports that we do should go to the Rules Committee. We've had a lot of discussion about that, not go back to whoever turned in the complaint. These are things that we need to iron out before we go forward. At one of our meetings, I don't remember which, I mentioned that there's a case involving former United States Senator William Proxmire, where there's some civil liability that can descend on people who start sending papers out because there's no governmental immunity here. These are not easy questions. And they're not questions that we should brush aside because we're in a hurry. So
Again.
I don't think that any of the things that we have before us today are in order, Mr. Chairman. And I think as a member of the subcommittee, I have absolute, not only right, but duty to raise these things.
Okay, well then what we will do is say that everyone can review these, and then at the next meeting or the next subcommittee meeting, we can hash out what needs to be added, what needs to be taken away, but at least we have something to go on. And none of us is drafting anything because we are all, that's what the staff is supposed to do, is draft this stuff.
Well, thank you, Jan. And I mentioned before, Mr. Chairman, that it would be good if council would attend these meetings.
Well, we cannot force council to do that, can we?
I beg your pardon?
I said we cannot force council to do that, can we?
Chairman could.
Oh, I
Chairman,
don't
the rules
know.
could.
I think that we are getting bogged down again, so let's just move forward with the agenda and try to get the forms approved today so that we can move forward.
Well, with all due respect, as I said earlier, I don't think the forms are finished. I think they're not
Okay,
even
we
half
can,
finished.
there's a motion on the floor.
We can review the forms. I said review the forms. We can review the forms, and if we have to make some edits, then we can make the edits. Everyone review them. Everyone say, I have, for example, on the Legislative Freedom of Information Complaint Procedures form, number D, I feel outcome expected or desired. I think we should eliminate that because it's not our purview to ask somebody, what do you want to see from this? Our job is to figure out whether or not the agency violated the open government law, period. We don't issue any rulings or anything like that. We just issue an advisory opinion. The open government law was, we believe based on this, the open government law was violated, or we believe based on this, the open government law was not violated.
So is there a motion then to reorder the agenda so that we go straight to approving
I have
the
a
forms?
motion, Mr. Chairman.
Well, she was willing to make her motion, and then she was willing to withhold her motion to give you some time to speak.
I move
And
that we
so,
adjourn.
well, there's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? There's no second. Did you want to make your motion?
Yes, I move that we reorder the agenda to review the complaint procedures and the forms that have been submitted, the draft forms that have been submitted to the council, and everyone review them and suggest edits that can be made so that we can actually get these forms finished so we can get some other work done.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I object. I think that we should,
Well, first of all, is there a second, and then,
okay.
okay.
I'll
discussion.
second the motion.
Discussion.
Okay, the only reason that I object is because, as we pointed out earlier, we've had the complaint procedures pretty much in order since the last subcommittee meeting. And this was sent to us, I believe it was Sunday, is that correct?
That's my recollection, yes.
Okay. And we've had this council complaint form since last subcommittee meeting. And if nobody got these and didn't have sufficient time to review them,
No, that was emailed to everybody.
that's what I thought.
Yes,
And
Jeff,
so-
that everybody had an opportunity to review this prior to coming to the meeting. What the vice chair is suggesting, that we reorder the agenda, go straight to these documents, and if there's a second, if the motion carries, we're not going to adopt the documents automatically. We're going to go through them one by one. So the
Okay.
purpose of the motion is just to bring the matter to the
yeah.
before us, so we can have some focus here.
Okay.
Okay?
So, I mean, does anyone have any other edits? I mean, or...
Well,
or
let's entertain
let's-
the,
You know,
let's entertain the,
Oh.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there, Senator Kliski?
Thank you, Mark. We've had several discussions that we need to do the rules first before we do the complaint, because unless we have procedural rules in place, there aren't any rules for the complaints to reflect. So once again, we've got the cart before the horse. The rules for proceeding on complaints should come first, and then the complaint form.
okay,
But the
is there a
rules is the
draft?
procedures.
Yeah.
The rules that governs us is Robert's Rules of Parliamentary Procedure. These are the rules. This is the process.
So, in other words, someone who wants to file a complaint dealing with a freedom of information or open government violation looks at Robert's Rules of Order?
No, they look
For
at this.
They look at the procedures.
They look at this. Complaint, Guam Legislative Freedom of Information Complaint Procedures. I believe these were submitted by
By
Barry Mead.
Barry Mead.
Right. And we need to, as a whole, discuss them and make some edits to them,
I'm ready.
correct? What?
Okay, so
Okay.
it's been moved and
So why did you
seconded. There's your, well, Bob, you've objected, right? I'm
I have.
assuming you can. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's an objection. All
Okay.
those in favor
So
say
wha-
aye.
well, I'm not quite sure why you're objecting. We're doing what you want to do.
And what I want to do is develop the rules first. This is a
Bob.
couple paragraphs, excuse me, Jane, it's a couple paragraphs of words, but it isn't anywhere near what we need to do this.
Well, what do you want, a book?
Well, probably
No.
2 or 3 pages of well-chosen words, not something like this.
Okay, tell you what. You draft the rules, and I'll edit them.
Got a hand up down there, Rory.
Thank you, Bob, for your assistance. Jeff, I recognize you at this time.
I'm worried about us drafting long rules. And the
That's
reason
why
for
I'm going to
that-
edit them.
Because I don't believe it's very consumer-friendly. And I think most people who want to submit a complaint to this council
Right,
are
one-page
going to
form.
want it to be very easy to understand, and they're not going to want to have to pick apart
This is
all
why,
the rules of procedure. So
this is why I'm going to,
if
yeah, let
If
him
there
try,
are-
and I will edit them.
If there are
Andrade and I
objections-
edit every day.
If there are the objections to the rules that we come up with
The three
today
of us.
at this advisory council level, based on the subcommittee submission that we all got via email Sunday, then please voice that concern. And I agree with Jane that, Bob, if you would like to rewrite them after today, then please feel free to do so.
What exactly are the rules for, with respect?
How to treat the complaint.
Two statutory schemes. There's an open government law that prohibits the government from meeting behind closed doors or with improper notice or other things like that. There's another statutory scheme that allows people to demand to inspect public records. if those things don't happen, then a citizen, the way this council was designed, a citizen can make a complaint to this council that those things didn't happen. Now, if we're going to do that, one of the things that came up in the discussion we had the other day are any references to documents that we might want to see. The first one that we talked about was a question about the charter. We couldn't have done anything without the charter. One of the suggestions was that people be asked to submit documents that would go along with their complaint, There were several other things that we discussed before Barry Mead came up with his rules here. So what I'm suggesting is that the subcommittee should sit down and go through and come up with rules. Once we come up with the rules, we come up with a complaint form and go on from there.
I think the subcommittee has already come up with pretty simple, straightforward rules. If you want to add to them, I'm suggesting that you do that on your own time and then bring it back to the subcommittee if you wish, or to the full advisory council.
After we've already adopted these.
We haven't adopted it.
And we're not going to?
Apparently not.
Okay. I'll take a crack at it.
They will be subject to editing, because we are not going to give the public some 3, 4, 5-page document that they have to weed through in order to make a complaint.
Actually, Bob does a good job with communicating with the layperson. He's written a column for how many years? Look, I mean, I do caution kind of ambiguous and general rules, right? Because we want to make sure that when people file complaints, it's treated the same way every time. So in as much as you can provide that kind of specificity or, step by step, and it does not need to be legalese, it does not need to be, long-winded or anything like that, but as long as it's, kind of detailed in the sense that, yes, we may ask you to bring more documents, or, yeah, I know there's a witness component here, or in order for us to consider a complaint complete, it has to have these elements as a checklist or something, so that the committee can actually, or subcommittee, can actually review at first look something as complete as possible. So you're not constantly tabling a complaint because they didn't provide this and they didn't provide that. And I think that would also help with the frustration of the complaint, like making sure the complainant doesn't get frustrated, because every time I submit something, they ask me for something else or something. So if that's what we're doing, making it more specific, a little bit more detailed, then let's have Bob do it and, see if it works for the subcommittee.
And if it works for the subcommittee, then it would come here. Correct?
As chairman of the subcommittee, that works for me.
That works for me. I thought that these two forms had done that, though, that were drafted because they were taken from other FOIA councils that have, I do not believe we need to reinvent the wheel here. But apparently.
Well, I don't want to get into a battle of cliches with you, Jane, but there are ways to go about these things, and there are ways to go about them. I'll tell you one apocryphal story. A member of this very body at one time got very interested in landlord-tenant law and took a statute from somewhere else and adapted it to our own local situation. So we had a very comprehensive set of rules on how the landlord was to heat the premises of the tenant. So, starting out with somebody else's stuff, that's okay.
Right, but
that's,
obviously edits need to be made.
I wouldn't even say editing. I'd say it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Okay.
Harmonizing it to local law.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
And so the next thing was the FOIA council complaint form.
Are we going to the form before we go through the rules?
No, we have to do the rules
Was that
first.
for everything then?
Yeah. We have to do the rules first.
Okay.
So,
I submit that we just read this through. I have some recommended changes. If anybody else does, please state it.
Well, she just did. just said
Once
that we
again,
can't
let's
go through
fit-
anything without the rules. So would you
Exactly.
withdraw your motion? If
Yeah.
it's,
I will
that's what
withdraw
you
my
want.
motion.
Okay.
So the complaint form,
So we
And-
go back to the subcommittee report, so you're still recognized.
yeah.
Okay. At this point in the subcommittee report, if it's okay, I'd like to review the complaint procedures that had been submitted to the full advisory council.
Well, you have the floor.
Okay.
We're not
Hold on a second.
adopting anything.
Wasn't it a motion? Did you say move?
No, I would like to. He said, I would
Oh, he
like
didn't
to.
make a motion?
No.
Okay, excuse me. All right.
In accordance with legislative resolution number 330-32, the following procedures are established to furnish upon request an advisory opinion or guidelines and other information regarding the Sunshine Reform Act of 1999 and the Open Government Law. Number one, requester submits an information advisory request form with the following, A through D. A, copy of FOIA request to the agency or person to which your request for information was made. B, response from the agency or person. C, reason for submission to the council. D, outcome expected or desired, remembering the council is an advisory regulatory entity. Whether or not we keep or nix that last item, I think we have to be clear on what it is that the complainant is seeking from this advisory council. And at the clearance level, both at the administrative level and the subcommittee level, I think that we have to get more specific there, and none of that specificity is indicated here. I suggest that after A through C or A through D, that the council administrator screens for any missing information and promptly notifies the complainant. Now, I think there has to be some empowerment at the council administrator level. If somebody does not put their middle initial, that's required, or if they don't specify some necessary information that is required by the subcommittee for clearance, that they should have the power to go back to the individual and say, hey, look, you're missing this or you're missing that. Let us help you along in the process in order for us to entertain a valid complaint. We just need this item or the other. And then I would also add that once the complainant has properly filed the complaint with the council administrator, and the council administrator has properly notified the complaint subcommittee and all advisory council members, then the administrator notifies the agency or person that is the subject of the complaint and invites input from them. That was addressed at the subcommittee level, and we have discussed it briefly here. I think it's fair enough to expect that if an agency or an individual in the government representing that agency is being complained against, that they should be notified of the complaint.
Aren't you talking about the rules?
These are the rules, yes.
I thought I was going to develop rules.
Well, I think we just agreed that we were going to discuss the rules that have been submitted.
I think he's offering a recommendation.
Well, believe me, Jeff, I'm not as dumb as I look. I think I can do this. And, let me take a crack at it. And after I've done that, if you have really good suggestions, then maybe we can entertain it then.
Did I miss something? I thought we just agreed that we were going to go through this process, what has been submitted, and honor the guy that raised his hand and said, let me put together simple rules. Can we not at
Well,
least read this before the advisory committee?
How many times have we, gone over the same thing, that you need to have the rules first and then the complaint form?
Okay.
Well, I think we
This is not the form. This is the rules. This is the procedure.
I think
Well, then
you.
what-
Wait, order.
He wants to draft the rules. Let's let him draft the rules so
Okay.
we can get something done.
Okay, so if I'm wasting time here, then I'll just stop here.
So you have nothing further to report.
Nothing further.
We could,
Jane?
however, Jeff, go through the FAQs because those have nothing to do with the rules. That's just information.
Well, that's under old business and new business, so
Oh, okay.
we're still on.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Let's move on to Training Seminars and Educational Programs Subcommittee.
Okay, so the deputy AG is not here. Same with publication of, yeah,
That's
that's you.
Rendrati.
Yeah, you're next, Rendrati.
Actually, considering the frenzy of emails that went back and forth for the complaint subcommittee, I kind of wanted that to settle and get everybody where they needed to
That's
be
fair.
before starting to reach out. So in the next week or so, I'll send out an invitation to anyone who'd be interested in being a part of that committee. I was thinking, we could look at some good public service kind of announcements in the different medias and things like that, or even doing a program, like a monthly FOIA kind of program with the paper in partnership with the council, things like that, and, in terms of kind of creating awareness and providing, information.
Would you like to do the FAQs? I mean, view the FAQs and maybe change them around?
Yeah, well, I looked at them when they were sent out, but yeah, we could do that. If you want us to take charge of the FAQs or things like that, that's fine too. You just need to let me know. I kind of looked at it from a more kind of public affairs kind of perspective, but if you want us to be, to deal with that, that's cool. That's cool.
Is that
And to be fair, you couldn't publish anything unless the rules were developed, right, and the procedures.
That'd be a
But-
good kind of launch, right, at the project, and part of it was just kind of waiting to see if we'd gotten there. So,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah,
so that's my
good. That's very
report,
good. Thank
and I
you.
will send an invitation out to everyone.
Okay, and for website compliance, Attorney Diaz says she will send a report regarding her subcommittee for distribution to the council. And so far, Mr. Mead has expressed an interest in being on her subcommittee. So if you're interested, let her know too. Okay. So is there a motion that we table item 4 of FOIA complaints? Because the vice chair made a motion, it was seconded, there was an objection, then you withdrew. So it's been moved and motion. So on the motion that we table item 4, on that motion, okay, there being no objections, so ordered. Approval of FOIA FAQs and sample FOIA request template, old business. You have before you a list of possible questions and proposed answers. Again, nothing has been adopted or voted on by way of any subcommittee, but just recommendation to the council that this be our freedom of information frequently
Would you like
asked
us to
questions.
kind of give our 2 cents for your committee if you are going
Where do
to
they come
deal
from?
with information?
Which one?
The Q&As.
We drafted this, Bob.
We,
Yeah, let me
I
recognize
think it was
Bernadette.
pulled
Not
by
the committee.
staff.
They were developed
Was
at
she-
the request of Maureen in the first meeting. She'd asked me to
Oh,
put
okay.
together a list of facts and questions and answers for the public, so that's what they were developed. They were sent immediately.
Anyway, does it matter who drafts these things? As a point of reference, does it matter?
it does now, after today.
Well, and
Yeah.
after any day going forward, if I told you that I had drafted something, or if Bernadette drafted something, or Maureen drafted something, or Jane drafted something, anything put before the council for approval, does it matter who authored the draft?
As long as we have 4 committees that are supposed to be developing these things, it does matter, yes.
Now we
those
can
things
see
would-
why we waited. It's been 21 days almost since our last meeting, and we have nothing to show for the public and what has happened over the last 21 days other than all this back and forth. So again, you had staff initiative, prepare something, and this wasn't approved yet. This is being offered for consideration.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I can take the FAQs and the templates, and we can review them at the committee level and then report them out for the council at the next council meeting. But the fact that they've been put together for us to kind of start with and work on, I think is great. It saves us a lot of time, and then we can,
Well, I'm going to
Adopt
set
that.
the next council meeting for next Tuesday.
Okay.
So by that time, the rules and everything else, you guys should be prepared to make your recommendations to the full council. I understand that in order to vote in subcommittee, you would have to notice that pursuant to the open government law. But as we talked about in a subcommittee meeting and in the last council meeting, we can always make the decisions at the council. So if a subcommittee is preventing the full council from moving forward, if you don't do your rules within 7 days, this council can meet and can adopt these rules that are proposed. We're just giving a courtesy to you.
Well, the subcommittee hasn't prevented anything, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
The
let me
subcommittee
review the
hasn't what?
tape.
I apologize.
Hasn't prevented anything. And it would seem that if we have a subcommittee, that the subcommittee ought to have a crack at those rules before it comes in
You
here.
have
Otherwise,
2 weeks.
May I be recognized?
Go ahead.
Okay. How long do you need to draft the rules, Bob?
I really don't know.
That sounds like it could be forever and a day.
It won't be forever and a day, but I think that I should draft the rules. I think they should, if we're going to have subcommittees, we're not going to have subcommittees, we ought to decide that right now, but they should go to the subcommittee. There should be subcommittee input. The subcommittee should report them back to this council with its recommendation. This is not, new stuff or imaginative or anything like that. That's how bodies like this operate.
And they have staff that do their work for them.
Well,
Usually.
according to the resolution, we do have staff that'll do the work for
And
us.
staff has done everything that's
Well-
needed to be done so far, which you continue to impugn.
Staff does it for the council. Staff
Correct.
does it for the members. Staff is not an independent agency.
And no one is acting independently, Bob. No one is acting independent of the council. The council still has to approve everything that's being put forth.
Well,
Bob, I think it's fair, though, that if they're going to allow you to take a stab at the rules or give you that Jeff sets a deadline. So if he gives you like 4 days, and he's trying to ask you how much you need, and if we're going to meet again on Tuesday, then we really should have him done before the meeting.
well, that means that probably we're not going to be able to have the subcommittee go through with them before they come to the council.
Well, can you guys work those timelines out?
I am okay with that.
Could I be recognized? Can
Of
we
course.
give Mr. Klitsky a week to draft the rules, and then the subcommittee meet next week, and then the full council meet in 2 weeks? So, and then I would like to ask Mr. Klitsky, because I will be off island, if you could email the subcommittee members, and then we can look at them and send our comments and possible edits through email.
Just on one condition, Jane. When you say Mr. Klitsky, I was looking around for my Uncle Roy. But I think that's tenable, and if we do it that way, then the subcommittee can actually notice up a subcommittee meeting in accordance with the open government law, and we can actually adopt something at that subcommittee meeting in a week that could go to the full council a week later.
Okay.
But you're
so-
talking about 2 weeks versus,
Right.
and we're still complying with the open government law. 6 weeks would have gone by, and we're still at the beginning stages of what we set out to do. And so you know how passion and energy kind of diminishes?
I don't think it will with this committee,
Well,
with this council.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it's your resolution, it was your idea, you started it, you set it up so that this council would be responsible for doing all this draftsmanship. You could have set up the council and had all that stuff done, and we just started, but you didn't. You devolved it onto this council. If you devolved it onto this council, then you can't expect that people are going to follow what you think is the appropriate timeline if it means not doing it correctly. That's basic.
But then the subcommittee has something that they're comfortable to begin discussion on rules of procedure, to which you objected and said that you want to have an opportunity to write your own rules and present it to the subcommittee. So that's when are you going to notice that?
It goes back to what I just said. If you were in such a big rush, Mr. Chairman, you could have done all that stuff, done the resolution, asked for appointments to the commission. We could have come in and we could have started right off, but you didn't. You decided you wanted this council to draft the rules. Now, if I'm going to have a part in drafting the rules, I'm going to draft them in what I think is a workmanlike fashion, and I'm not going to be steamrollered into
Well,
something
but-
just because
but there's no-
staff did it.
But there's no steamrolling trying to take place here. The members who have been involved in drafting these rules have their experiences, decades of experiences in open government and sunshine law, and so I've deferred to them.
My comment, Mr. Chairman, was not based on that. My comment was based on, well, gee, we've been here for 21 days or whatever, and we haven't done anything yet. We haven't done anything yet. is for the reason that I mentioned. You could have had all of this stuff in place and not devolved it onto this
Bob,
committee.
I would like to move forward here.
Fine.
So can we just ask you, is it reasonable to ask you to
I'll have
draft the
them done
rules in a week?
I'll have them
Okay.
done at the
All right, so Mr.
meeting
Chair?
next- Yeah.
In a week?
Okay, under,
Jeff, can the subcommittee meet in a week?
Yes, can we have a motion?
Aye.
I can articulate it right now. I think I know what everybody wants, or at least everybody agrees on.
Sure.
I don't think you need a motion to call your subcommittee in a week.
No. Yeah.
Just do it.
No, you don't, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, just so everybody's clear, what we want to do is meet in a week, and then a week after that, if it's okay with the
Subcommittee
chairman,
meets.
we meet again as a full advisory committee. Is that sufficient time to draft the rules? Okay.
and if there's no rules, the full council will still meet and proceed. Okay? So-
On the same day?
No, the following. I'm
Okay.
saying
The
if there's no
following,
rules.
the
All right.
following
just-
week, so everyone,
Okay,
and then, so what we will do is adopt the rules that, as a subcommittee, and then push them out to the entire committee for review and adoption, and they should be able to get those revisions in the email several days beforehand, so that they can have time to review them.
And we can email if we have suggestions along the way, all during the week.
Yes, I believe that would be sufficient.
Okay. And there's been moved and seconded, there's no objections.
Right.
All those in favor?
And
Aye.
since we don't have any other business, because we
We
don't
do.
have the rules.
But we have the FOIA request, FOIA frequently asked questions that I apologize was put together by the subcommittee.
I would be happy to work with Ree on those. I did ask for them. I remember that Bernadette circulated this document, which has not been approved by the council, but she did it within a day. I thought that was highly impressive. Thank you, Bernadette. And so I'd be happy to take a finite look at it with Ree and Jane if she would like to participate also. And I'm sure, follow Ree's lead in coming up with a task list for her committee.
Okay. On item 6, approval of guiding principles. This was also emailed to all the council members. And if you didn't see it and you're seeing it for the first time, I'll give you some time to take a look at it now. There's a motion that we table this item as well till the next meeting of the council. Seconded. There's no objection.
Second.
Motion carries. Other business.
I don't believe we can do any other business because we don't have the rules. So in light of that, I would move that we adjourn.
Before that, under public comment, there's been a request from Mr. McNitch, who is a member of the public, to address the council, and you said 2 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Ron McNinch. I do have a complaint before you, but I just had a couple of very, very brief comments. The government of Guam has a long history and tradition of open government. Many years ago, not that many years ago, the case of Palomo versus Perez required the Civil Service Commission to meet in public. That was a very important case, and so we have a lot of tradition in our society for open government. One thing I'd like to suggest to members of the public and to those present is these kinds of complaints and this kind of advice can effectively be crowdsourced. That is, you have a website, anybody can look at the information and take a look for themselves. It's a great way to educate the public. Great civics education can be drawn from looking at the basic issues and the basic facts. I noticed that there was a complaint against the Mayor's Council. When I look at open government failures, I look at leadership failures. And I think that if the Mayor's Council found that they violated the open government law, they shouldn't need this open government council to tell them that, but they need to because they're not going to do it themselves. And so you serve a very important role because you have to remind people that they're supposed to follow the rules. And a person shouldn't have to get an attorney to come and do this. And so I greatly appreciate the efforts of the council. Basically, I think if there was leadership, the Mayor's Council would say, we made a mistake, they fess up to it, they move on, and that should have been the end of it. Thank you very much, Mr. Rigel. On my issue related to the Faculty Senate, Same thing. All we have to do is follow the law or have a discussion about the law. Healthy conversations are very, very, very important. I looked at the draft document that was submitted to this council. It's wonderful. It's the exact kind of public discussions that should surround open government discussions. I think, I made a little post, if I may hold it up very quickly. It says, open government for all. And that's what the government should be. The government should be just like this room, and that is, it's an open discussion. It should be an open conversation. Thank you very much to members of the council and committee, and I appreciate all of your hard work. And I do know, as a startup committee, you have a lot of difficulties trying to get things started. That happens with every council and every commission, but I'm very pleased to see all the wonderful work many of you have done so far to really try to make a difference in this area. Thank you very much. Anytime.
Thank you, Dr. Ron McNitch. Madam Vice Chair, I recognize
Any
you at this
other
time.
discussion? Motion to adjourn?
Okay, there's a moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
On the motion to adjourn, subject to the call of the chair. I want to make sure we don't adjourn sine die. Okay, on that motion, it's very clear, no objections to order. Thank you.